We are back now. So with a special excitement, I'm pleased to welcome Professor David Oppenheimer as the first speaker. We have invited Professor Oppenheimer, and we are really honored by his acceptance and presence here today to speak about how can we leverage the internet to effectively teach comparative equality in a comparative context. After his presentation, we will have a question and answer slot. Please, if you have any questions, we would be grateful if you could raise your hand to take the floor at the end of his presentation. There are many reasons to invite Professor Oppenheimer. I am sure some of you will be aware of his career, but I would like to emphasize that he is the director of the Berkeley Center on Comparative Equality and Anti-Discrimination Law. The center aim is to bring together over 500 scholars, activists, NGO, workers, government anti-discrimination agency lawyers and officials, PhD candidates, graduate students, and legal practitioners from 6 continents to address the problems of systemic inequality and discrimination. Part of the mission of the Berkeley Center is to expand the understanding of inequality and discrimination through the tools of comparative legal studies, and to transfer that knowledge for those who study inequality to those who enforce anti-discrimination law. No doubt about that, gender is a systemic cause of inequality all over the world, and this is why we are here today. Professor Oppenheimer's resume is impressive, so I'll only highlight a couple of things additionally to his tenure as director of the Berkeley Center on Comparative Equality and Anti-Discrimination Law. He's a graduate from Harvard Law School, a faculty co-director in Berkeley University, clinical professor of law. He taught at different universities, not only in the States, but all over the world. He has presented scholarly papers on discrimination law at many universities. He's an acknowledged author of many books, chapters, and articles about this issue. So, Professor Oppenheimer is going to discuss the initiatives they are engaged in Berkeley to encourage partnerships like the group that we have created and the group we hope we will strengthen from now on with all of you. Please join me in welcoming Professor Oppenheimer. David, the floor is yours.
Gracias. Hola. Buenas tardes. I will now move to English, but it's a great pleasure to return to Spain, even if only virtually. I've made many wonderful visits over the years, and actually a part of my family came from Spain, left Spain around 1500, and they'd be very pleased to know I was invited to come back and give this talk. As explained, I'm a professor at Berkeley. I teach civil procedure, I teach evidence, I teach a course in comparative equality law. I write about comparative anti-discrimination law and civil rights history and affirmative action. I supervise students who work with me on comparative equality litigation in various parts of the world and on policy papers. And I direct our Comparative Equality Center. And the center, as was explained, we have members from around the globe. We have members on every continent but Antarctica, and they are academics and advocates and activists. I would welcome any of you here who fit into those categories, and I suspect many of you do, to join us. We do research and policy work, and we work mostly in working groups, a number of which I think would be of interest to this group. Our working groups include a working group on sexual harassment and violence, a working group on pay equity. We just had a pay equity conference a few weeks ago with 75 invited guests from 14 countries to talk about how pay equity, both gender and race, is a global issue and ought to be understood in global terms. We have a working group on global systemic racism, another on disability rights, one on LGBTQI rights, which is just getting started. A working group on equality rights of climate migrants, a working group on COVID-19 and global inequalities, and a new group very much centered in Europe at this point on digital equality. And we do a number of things which I think are similar to some of the things that you're trying to do in this consortium. We hold scholarly conferences. We do webinars, sometimes on Espanol. That's because we have many active members in Latin America, particularly active in our sexual harassment and violence group, including in Colombia and Argentina and Mexico, and Brazil. Of course, the members in Brazil, their first language is Portuguese, but many of them also are fluent in Spanish. And so we do some Spanish language webinars, though most of our work is in English. We have a journal in which we try to collect articles in our field that have been published in other leading journals, and to distribute the abstracts and links, so to make it easier for people in the field to keep up with the new work. And in fact, the editor-in-chief of that journal, the new editor-in-chief, who I'm about to announce, is herself Spanish, although teaching now at University College Dublin. We publish books from time to time. Our most recent book is, I don't know if this will show up on your screens, The Global Me Too Movement. And it is a book with 48 authors from 28 countries, talking about how the Me Too movement is truly a global movement. It's available on our website for our favorite price, which is to say it's free as a download, though you can also buy a softcover copy on Amazon if you were so inclined. And I'll get to this more in a moment, but we develop massive open online courses in various areas of equality law, free online web courses, and it's something that I'm going to urge you to do in your consortium as a way of extending the reach of your teaching mission. I understand you have a teaching mission and a research mission, and I applaud you for that. We partner with academic centers and NGOs around the globe, and we're very happy to be a partner with this important project that you're working on gender equality in Europe. It seems to me that the greatest problem in our world today, the greatest threat to our globe, is climate change. And I'm not going to be speaking about climate change, but I feel like we have to acknowledge it before we talk about anything else. And of course, I come from a country with a great deal of responsibility for the problem of climate change. And so I try to do so with a certain amount of humility, but we got to fix it. But it seems to me the second greatest problem that we face as a global community, and not unrelated, is the problem of inequality. And gender inequality, racial, ethnic, religious inequality, inequality through the maltreatment of people with disabilities, sexual identity inequality, wealth inequality, intersectional inequality. These are all problems that exist locally and domestically and nationally and regionally and on a global basis. These are all global issues where we can learn from one another, through the tools of comparative studies, through the tools of comparative law. And one important way of addressing the issue of inequality on a regional and global basis is to do exactly what your group is doing today, to form consortiums, alliances, partnerships in order to reach a larger audience and in order to understand the problem from multiple dimensions. So what I'd like to do, I've used about 10 minutes of your time. What I'd like to do in about the next 10 minutes before I open things up for discussion is to describe two of our initiatives that I think are easily replicated, with the hope that I can persuade you that this should be part of your initiative, and that I can offer some assistance based on our experience. In doing this, we have not failed to make errors from which we've learned. And I like to tell my students that the reason I know so much is that we learn from our mistakes. So I'd like to be able to share those mistakes and therefore what we've learned with others who are doing similar work. For that reason, I'm really pleased to be here with you today. So first is our multi-university courses. The technology that we're using here today so that we can join together from all over Europe and from the United States is a remarkable technology. And I think we're just beginning to realize some of the effective ways that we can use it. Last summer, as it became clear that in most parts of the world, students would not be going back to the classroom, and university students would be studying by using Zoom or Microsoft Meet or the other technologies that make it possible for remote learning. Some colleagues and I, led by Panos Kapados of the University of Portsmouth in the UK, pulled together a group from our center of 25 colleagues from 15 universities, covering 6 continents. And we, on the fly, designed and got approval at each of our institutions for an online live course on COVID-19 and global inequalities. We met weekly. The meetings were held over Zoom. We met in the morning in North America and South America. It was the afternoon in Europe and Africa. It was the evening in India and Malaysia and China. It was the middle of the night in Australia, and nonetheless, we had Australian colleagues joining us. It's not easy to be an internationalist when you live in Australia. But of course, it's also probably not easy to be not an internationalist when you live in Australia, or your community starts to feel very small. And what we did was to have a few lecturers for each class talking about the newest inequality issues being raised by the pandemic, issues concerning gender and caregivers and essential workers, issues involving low-wage workers. I think I just repeated myself. Issues involving problems of domestic violence, issues about the isolation of LGBTQ youth, issues about racism and the distribution of medical resources and treatment. The classes were designed only briefly before they were presented because we were dealing with material that was brand new. We tried to have in each class meeting a number of problems where students could discuss what was going on in their own country with regard to this issue of inequality within the pandemic. And so much of the instruction occurred in breakout rooms where we'd have 5 or 6 students from 5 or 6 countries with a faculty member or a teaching assistant directing the discussion. And the impact for the students was dramatic. The comments that we got at the end of the course suggested that the students found it incredibly valuable. And frankly, so did all of us who were teaching. Now this year, with considerably more planning, because we had more time to plan, and a somewhat smaller footprint, we have designed and will teach a 12-university course on comparative equality law. We have a textbook. I'm one of the authors of a textbook on comparative equality law. I understand that you're doing a textbook on European gender equality. I think that's a wonderful resource to begin with for designing a multi-university course around it. And well, it's great to meet with our own students in a seminar room and study with them. The opportunity that now exists through technology to meet with colleagues and students from multiple universities and together study material relevant to all of us is just an exponential benefit in terms of the effectiveness of our teaching and how much we learn from each other, how much our students learn from us. So that's one of the ways that I think we can leverage the internet to effectively teach comparative equality in a comparative context. The second is massive open online courses, which are now readily available around the world through edX and through Coursera. At Berkeley, I have a course at Stanford, which already exists, and we are designing Berkeley courses. The Stanford course is free, which again is my favorite price. You can pay $75 if you want a Stanford certificate. And what's amazing to me is that a lot of people do. So we have thousands of people in the course at any time. We have hundreds who are purchasing certificates so that they can say that they took a Stanford course and they've been certified in comparative equality law. We are designing courses now through the center that will be Berkeley edX MOOC courses. We've taken recordings of brief lectures from professors from around the globe, sometimes from our conferences with permission, sometimes in direct interviews that we conduct on Zoom. We add reading material and discussion material, and we can present it to a worldwide audience where anyone can be a student. We have a course on COVID-19 and global inequalities. It will be out next month. The people at edX told us that we shouldn't expect too much. They thought that the initial enrollment might be 20 or 25,000 students. I don't think I've taught civil procedure or evidence to 25,000 students over a very long career of teaching. So it's an amazing way to leverage our work. Next spring, we will complete and publish our edX MOOC course on the global Me Too movement. And I hope by the following summer or fall, our course on pay equity and fair wages. Others will follow. But these are really easy to replicate. And much of the work can be done by graduate students who want. I think somebody might want to mute their. Someone might want to mute themselves. Happy to take questions and comments. I'll be done in just a moment. But these courses are really easy to produce. They're easy to replicate. We're happy at the center to partner with other schools and centers and to do courses that are joint projects. And again, I think this is a technology tool that allows us to leverage existing technologies in order to more effectively teach and learn about comparative equality in a comparative context. Now, I've spoken for about 20 minutes, and that's as long as almost anyone can pay attention to almost anyone. And so let me suggest that we open the floor for discussion. And so I turn it back to the chair for that purpose. And thank you very much for this opportunity to meet with you and to get a chance to come back to Spain, even if only virtually. At least I avoid the jet lag this way.
Thank you very much, Professor Oppenheimer. No doubt that we will receive you with open arms. No worry, whenever you want to come here. Thank you. So if anyone wants to raise a question, please, Dragitsa, you have the floor. Open the mic, please. Yeah.
So I'm here also with my voice. So my name is Dragica Vojinović from the Faculty of Law, University of Belgrade, and I'm the coordinator of this Lawgem project. And so Isabel told us, and we all from the consortium felt happy when she mentioned your ideas and your goodwill to cooperate with us. And it really, everything what you said today is fantastic. And we really can cooperate, I think, in the best possible way, using your ideas, replicating them, but also we can exchange our ideas. For example, we have been working on one of intellectual outputs, a lifelong learning platform. So there we plan to do something, and we can learn a lot from you. To conduct live courses, to implement our master program courses, to exchange with you ideas, to combine ideas. So thanks a lot, and we are looking forward to our cooperation. So please have us in mind and give us an opportunity to replicate your lively courses, but also to exchange ideas and to create together new opportunities for the mass audience through the internet. So thanks a lot.
Of course. Let's put together a small group that can meet regularly for brainstorming and thinking about work that we can do together.
Yes, let's do that. And for example, what I forgot to tell, you mentioned the working group, which has been devoted to the issues of disability and the persons with disability. For example, we as the consortium, and especially the group from our faculty, are planning one online meeting on September 20th about the problems of inequality of the persons with disability. So you can help us and we can do it together if you want. So we have already created some kind of the draft agenda, which can be and should be much better. So we can do it also, and you can help us or we can make it together.
We'd be delighted, absolutely thrilled. The leaders of our working group on disability rights are Mark Bell, who is the Dean of the School of Law at Trinity College in Dublin, so he's with you in Europe, and Laverne Jacobs, who is a professor of law, and I think an associate dean at, it's in Canada, in Ontario, Windsor, Ontario, the University of Windsor School of Law. Yes, let's get them together in a meeting with the right people in your consortium and see how we can cooperate on that. That'd be wonderful.
Thanks in advance, and we can start with that very soon. Thanks.
Please, Amalia Verdu wants to raise a question. You raise your hand.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Pleased to meet you all. I think it was very interesting what you were talking about, and I would like to ask you a question. It's like you were saying how much students can learn from us and how it's important that we can kind of exchange ideas with other students and how can we teach these students thanks to the internet. But don't you think that probably we should also rethink how to kind of blur these hierarchical lines between a student-teacher, and that we have a lot to learn from them, because now we are transmitting a knowledge to them that is from the past, is created for the needs of the society, that actually was in the past, and then the students can give us some hints about where are the challenges that they are facing right now, and then we can kind of transfer our knowledge and the law.
I think that's absolutely right. I think, look, we know a lot because we have studied and we have lived and we have worked, and all of this contributes to our having become experts within our fields. And I think that's an important resource that we bring to our students. But yes, our students have their own understanding of the world as they're experiencing it. And one of the things that is absolutely essential, I think, for us to be able to reach our students is to understand, to listen to them and understand enough about what they're telling us about their lives that we can make what we've learned relevant to them. And so, yes, I think I learn a great deal from my students. I think we all do. And that's one of the pleasures of teaching is that phenomenon. But you know, our ability to learn from each other is sometimes stymied by first our own egos, our own sense of importance, and I think by our own sense of our expertise. And for that reason, co-teaching is both a challenge and an opportunity. You know, the chance to have a discussion, not just with students, but with other faculty where we may disagree about something, is an opportunity for us to learn and to demonstrate how we learn to our students. It's an opportunity to show the best of ourselves to them. It's also an opportunity to show the worst of ourselves to them. if we are didactic, if we are egotistical, if we don't listen. And so it's in that way the kind of challenge which leads to growth, and growth and learning are, I hope, why we're in this business.
Thank you. Does anyone want to raise a question? Yeah. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Oppenheimer. My name is Jesus Verdu. I share my name with the previous speaker. And I would like you to pose a question about, you mentioned before that inequalities was one of your main worries. My point is, if through internet education, through online education, we are not creating a layer of discrimination regarding people who have not access to online resources. It really, of course, I'm aware of the advantage, but my question is, what about the disadvantage? I'm not creating an underclass, an underprivileged part of our society who cannot access to these education tools. What are you thinking about this?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's already the case that because most centers of education are in cities, are in urban areas, that there is a disadvantage for people from rural areas. And it is already the case that globally, the resources in the global south are far, far lower than the resources, the educational resources in Europe and in North America. And that creates inequalities, that creates disadvantage. And the internet exacerbates that because regionally in the United States, I don't know if this is true in Europe, but in the United States, rural areas don't get good internet coverage. And as a result, people living in rural areas don't get the same benefits that are available to those in urban areas. Within urban areas, the poor don't get the same internet access as the wealthy or even the middle class. And that means during the lockdown, poor children were excluded from education here in the United States, and I believe that was true elsewhere. And then globally, internet access through much of the global south is inadequate. It's a big problem when we have conferences that include colleagues in Africa, even in South Africa, which is a relatively wealthy country compared with the rest of Africa. The internet access, even for those people who are in major cities, is often inadequate, and it makes it difficult for them to participate in the meetings. So, yeah, I agree that our use of the internet in some ways exacerbates existing inequalities. I don't know that it creates new ones so much as that it makes the existing ones even more obvious and excludes people from these new opportunities. It's interesting, in the United States right now, there's a debate in our Congress over how much we should spend to expand internet access to rural areas. And just as in the 1930s, under President Roosevelt, there was an enormous expansion of rural electrification, of moving electricity into rural areas. I think under President Biden, there's going to be this enormous expansion of broadband, of internet access into rural areas. And it will be important and into urban areas in poor neighborhoods. And that will be important in terms of equality goals. I don't know if there's something similar happening in Europe. I'd be interested to know.
Thank you. Please, Amalia, do you want to raise a new question?
Yeah, no, it was just to answer David about what he was asking about this sending the internet in rural areas. I forgot to say before that I'm from Spain, but I work in Finland in the University of Turku. In Finland, usually you have very small places all around the country, except for 2-3 kind of cities, which for American and for other big cities is really like small villages. And it's amazing because that's something that it was done a long time ago. It's like it's already provide this internet access in the whole country, even if the most remote areas, because they realized, for example, that for health services it was really needed. It was easier to attend people by internet than sending someone there. So I think that's, as you say, that's something that is really important, because we realize in Finland that the education level, the quality is really good, but it's also because it's accessible to everybody. There is no difference. It's this kind of understanding of what means equality. Equality in the school, equality in the education means that there's no differences and everybody has the same status in class. So even for the, books are free, material, school material and university material is free, and food is free. So I think that's important, because otherwise, as you said, certain people have access to culture and to education, others are completely excluded, and it's creating a lot more inequalities.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Amalia, and thank you very much, Professor Oppenheimer. Thank you for your speech. Thank you for your offer. I'm sure we will continue and strengthen this collaboration, and we are really pleased to have you in mind. So thank you, and